you scared to really put yourself out there, or do you stay up all night to work on something and get something just perfect and then arrive and with somebody else who had that same exact mission spent like 10 minutes in the morning throwing this together? And one more, if you have a kid, is the first thought that comes to your mind after your kid utters anything that he's not happy with is like, oh, I'm a bad parent. Criticism is all around us all day long, and as highly sensitives, we are incredibly sensitive to criticism. So today I want to talk about another one of the 30 things that I wish I would have known earlier in my life as a highly sensitive, and that is I will be more sensitive to criticism as a highly sensitive and how to handle it, what to do from there. So today I'll give you 3 steps what to do. You've just received this criticism. Where do you go from here? You know that I'm a fan of journaling. I think journaling is just amazing to figure out, to process things. You can do this talking on camera. I love pen to paper. So I hope you have a journal when you're ready to process through some kind of criticism you've received, and I'll definitely put these steps below in the description. Number 1, write down what actually happened. Write it down and try to be really honest with yourself. And if you're feeling yourself embellishing it, then you can always write that story first, right? You can write that emotional story first of like, this is how I received it. This is how big it felt. This is how I felt like they were barking at me, you know? So you can write that story down first or say it out loud, right? This is what happened. I can't believe it. Something you would tell a friend, right? This is what just happened. I feel really awful about it. And then go, okay, is that actually true? Is that actually how it happened? And then kind of write the more objective story, right? Somebody else watching this event, how would they have seen it? What has actually happened? That helps us because, yes, as highly sensitives, we feel it deeply, particularly in the moment, and then we like blow it out of proportion, which we get criticized for, but I actually have started to love that about myself because I love that intensity. I love to feel, and at this point, I can actually find it comical. When we watch a movie, we want things to be over the top because it's funny, because it brings home the point, right? And that's exactly what criticism is trying to do. It's trying to blow it out of proportion for you to really uncover the belief that you have underneath it to help you out, to help you to grow. So I've started to just chuckle at it and be like, wow, yeah, I experienced that really intensely. Now, of course, if you've just gotten criticized for something, you might not feel like chuckling. Still, take this step, write down the embellished story, and then was that actually true, or what was the more objective thing? And then think about how would somebody else, preferably somebody that you know well, so you would know their actions and their thoughts, and hopefully somebody who's not highly sensitive, just so you can get a little bit of a different perspective. How would this person have received this message, and what would they do from here? That gives you a little bit further like objective, like, wow, this wasn't just like a personalized target, right? Others deal with this kind of criticism as well. Just to start pulling apart what I do versus who I am. They criticized my work or what I did, my performance, my action, not who I am. Now, if they actually criticize like who you are, those targeted specific words, we're going to get into the second part of this. What was the intention, right? You got to look at who is this person? How much do I put into what they say? And what was their intention behind it? What was their intent? Was their intent good? Was their intent to help me, to give me valuable feedback? Do they want me to succeed? And this is why they gave me this feedback. Or do they just want to tear me down, right? I love what Tony Robbins says. He says people respond only out of 2 reasons. They respond out of love or they respond out of pain. And that is a good one for me to pull out whenever I feel deeply hurt by what somebody just said. And I'm thinking about their intent. And I'm like, okay, was this person in a state of love when they said that because they want me to grow? Or were they in a state of pain where they maybe criticizing themselves for this and then they saw this flaw in me and just couldn't take it, right? Or did they just have a really bad day? Did they just go through something in life that was really hard on them and now they see me thriving and they can't take it, right? Are they responding out of love or out of pain? Marissa Peer, she says, hurt people, right? If they're in pain, they're going to hurt the next person coming along because they, just like us, right? When somebody is deeply in pain, they're kind of like highly sensitive. They feel it intensely and it's so big that they feel like they can't handle it themselves. And it feels good in some way if somebody else also feels that pain, because then at least you don't have to be alone in it, right? So we can always shine some empathy on these people, but mostly we're talking about you and your feelings in that moment. So think about who this person was. Was it my boss? Was it my significant other? You know, what was going on for him in that moment? Was he having a really bad day? Was he just fed up with something? Is he really, upset with me because, there were dirty dishes, whatever it is? Like, was it actually about the thing that was going on, or was there something else going on for him, or is there something else going on in our relationship? But it's such an amazing invitation to have a conversation, right? Once you can calm your own emotions down. Yeah, and just like, how was it delivered, right? That helps you to kind of figure out the intent. And also remember, because we HSPs are very picky about this, right? But because we feel things so intensely, we would love for somebody to give us like this cozy, warm blanket and just like a little bit of a hint of the feedback, because, most of the time we know anyway what we could or would do better. Like, gosh, when I get done with like a speech or a video and then I'm going, oh, I could have done this better and that better. I know, don't even tell me. But it's good to hear it from the other person's perspective, from the audience's perspective of what actually went on, right? So think about, who is it that's giving me this feedback? What's going on for them? Through what kind of lens are they looking at this performance or this action? Let's get into step number 2. Why? Why are we more sensitive to criticism as highly sensitives? Now, I have been calling this the core wound, but yesterday I was listening to Dr. Becky Kennedy. She is a psychologist and, gosh, so well known. She does everything about parenting. She's an amazing parenting teacher, coach, psychologist, researcher, whatever you want to call her. She leads a platform called Good Inside. It's so incredibly valuable. And she talks about DFKs, deeply feeling kids, which in my opinion are highly sensitive kids, right? And she talks about the core fear, right? So for me, I've always been talking about the core wound. She talks about the core fear, which I feel like overlaps beautiful. And that she says, for the deeply feeling kids, is that fear that I can't be loved. And that is something so strong for us highly sensitives because we feel so different, right? I grew up with 2 sisters who aren't highly sensitive. Let's see, my other siblings, my half siblings, maybe one of them is highly sensitive, but mostly, right? It's like at my dad's house, 6 kids over the weekend, I'm the only highly sensitive. I'm going to feel different. I'm going to feel like the black sheep. I'm going to feel like the one who always needs something a bit different. So I also talk about, remember that percentage, 15 to 20% of the world's population is highly sensitive. That means during the day, 80 to 85% of people that you meet are just a bit different in how they process the information that comes to them. They feel a bit less than we do, right? Not so intensely as we do. So that's something good to remember, that like, hey, I'm highly sensitive. I'm going to perceive this criticism more intensely. So if that's the first thing that you can remember when something just hit you like a bomb because somebody said something and you're like, oh. And then also if you can remember, yeah, that deepest fear that we have, that core wound that we have is that I am unlovable, which that is actually true for a lot of people. Probably is one of the top 3 that Tony Robbins mentions that everybody struggles with, that you're unlovable. But as always, as highly sensitives, we feel this one so deeply. I am unlovable for who I am, and look, I am so different than all the others around me. Of course I'm unlovable. I have to try to be more like them, right? This is where it starts. And so when we get feedback, the first thought is, now I'm unlovable. Now, this is why we tend to try to be perfectionists. We want to get everything so perfect that we don't have to feel the pain of the feedback, of the criticism, right? We want to get it right out of the gate. And this was actually something that I wanted to conclude with, right? Because it's such a good point, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. What is that need for things to be perfect so you can avoid criticism, which you can't ever avoid totally, right? People are going to tell you what they think. But in your mind, I'm going to get this as perfect as I can so I can avoid the criticism. What is that keeping you from? Because I know for me, in my college years, I definitely had that distinct feeling of, oh, I would love to try that, but I don't think I'm going to be any good at it, so I'm not going to even try. It kept me from exploring, from experiencing different things because I was too shy to suck at it initially. I felt like if I couldn't be good at it out of the box, it wasn't for me, right? I don't want to be caught looking stupid trying this, right? Learning. So it's kind of a little offside from criticism. Okay, continuing with point number 2, right? We have the why. Why is this affecting? Why is criticism affecting us more deeply as highly sensitives? Remembering that core wound of like, yeah, is this just something where I'm like feeling like I'm not lovable because of this? And then the second, why to this as you're journaling, why is this particular situation, this feedback, this criticism that I got, why does it hurt so badly? Why is this affecting me? What is the belief underneath it? Remember, I always say every emotion has a belief that's attached to it. That's actually from Bashar, right? Channeled by Daryl Anka. If you feel something, there's a belief underneath it. What must I feel? What do I believe? What do I believe to be true in order to feel the way that I do? And it's so incredibly empowering once you can really come back to that belief and be like, oh, this is why this feels so bad. Do I want to continue to hold that belief? Is that belief serving me? How can I shift this belief? What would I like to believe instead about myself or about the situation? And it also helps me. We just talked about this yesterday in our video. What's my biggest fear, right? If you can uncover, because that's usually what this feeling is, right? The feeling is so big because the fear is so big. What is the biggest fear? Is it that I'm unlovable? Is it that I suck at something? Is it that I love doing this, but what if I suck at it and then others will see me and then I'm going to be ashamed of it? What is it? Why does this feel so big to me? What is my biggest fear? Or in your job, is the biggest fear, what if I lose my job? What if I mess this up? Or what if I don't do this enough? Like, what if I lose my job? Then it's actually a good thing, right? It's a good thing that we feel so deeply about this criticism because then we jump into action, right? We're the first ones to fix it, the first ones to jump into action. And you betcha that your boss is watching that. Your manager is watching that. It's like, oh, I gave them that feedback. They're taking massive action to fix that, to change that, to learn from that, to grow from that. That is an amazing trait to have as a personality, as a characteristic, right? To want to fix it, to want to make it better. We're just working on getting your anxiety down about it, right? Because that's the part that well, almost immobilizes us, or in the moment just makes us, or sometimes even like completely abandon it, right? A lot of my early 20s was spent running, right? I'm like, if something got really hard, I ran. I'm like, I can't be here, right? So we're working on, receiving that criticism, going through our own process, like I'm talking about in this journal, processing it through to then be able to take that action. Yeah. And to come back around, right? When you're discovering this belief, we're still talking about point number 2, right? Why is this affecting me so deeply? What's the belief underneath it? How can I start to change my belief? And to bring in some affirmations, right? I am enough. I am good enough. I remember all the times when I did do a great job in this project and at that project. And I remember my manager praising me for this, remember, because in that moment, when we receive this criticism and our feelings are so huge about it, we go into tunnel vision. All we can see, all we can feel is, I'm not good enough. I did a crappy job. I'm afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid, it's like tunnel vision. It's being on a frequency where you can't reach anything else because you're on this frequency of, I'm not enough. I'm scared. What's going to happen? So then when you're processing through this, can you bring around the other side of it when you're discovering this belief of like, I'm afraid of this, bringing in the positive aspects, remembering how you handled criticism well the last time, remembering what you can do to make it better, remembering even just affirming to yourself, I am enough. I really care about this job. I really care to do a good job. I do take my time to, do the research and do a good job, whatever it is that you have to tell yourself. Or if you have to be brutally honest with you of like, I didn't, take my time with this time because this and this was going on, or because I've been slacking, or because I let personal issues affect me, to where I didn't have enough time, whatever it was. Be honest with yourself and then really pick apart the action from who you are, and then remind yourself with positive affirmations, I am enough. I am a good person. I am lovable. And if that feels hard to say, oh my gosh, that brings me back to like Louise Hay, right? Mirror work. I don't know if you've come across mirror work with Louise Hay, of just every morning looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, using your own name, I love you. I really love you, Christine. That makes such a huge difference, and it's going to be hard initially, but all the basis of my work, right? I'm really here to help highly sensitives feel better about who we are, about our authentic selves, about coming back around to really bringing this out and not being afraid to share with the world our gifts. Because of this criticism, right? We're so afraid to share. But just sharing ourselves and just living our lives and knowing that there's nothing wrong or broken with us. And it's just so beautiful to bring this all together, to remember the basis of like, oh yes, it's all about self-worth. It's all about feeling unlovable. How can I embrace myself more? And we'll talk a whole lot more about that. Let's get into the third point. The third point, this is my favorite, right? Because you're journaling along. Let's do a brief review. Let's see. You've journaled about what actually happened. What was the intention of the person giving the criticism or feedback? Point number 2, we talked about why. Why are highly sensitives more sensitive to criticism? And why is this particular feedback affecting me so deeply? And then the point number 3, can I be okay with not being perfect? Can I be okay with not being perfect? And I'll say more on that just right after I tell you about I have put together a free little guide, which will be like your basis. It's like the beginning, the 3 things that I feel like every highly sensitive needs in order to start going in that direction of really creating an incredibly fulfilling life as a highly sensitive. It took me a while to put together this guide. It's beautifully packaged together in Canva. God, such a great app. And it's a guide for you to remember the 3 big things. And when you can focus on those core pillars, you can really build a stable base to create a fulfilling life as a highly sensitive. So let's get back to our point number 3. Can I be okay with not being perfect, right? With messing up? Can I accept that I'm a human being and that I'm going to make mistakes? Can I accept that? Can I anticipate feedback? Can I anticipate criticism? Can I anticipate that not everything is going to be perfect? Can I hand things in being, the best version I could pull together in this time versus, oh, I know it still needs some work. This is my rough draft. Can I be okay with that? And one way that has really helped me to make that bridge is to think about somebody in my life who I really respect, who I really love, and then thinking about them making a mistake. What was the last big mistake? Or if they made this mistake that I'm being criticized for right now, how would I handle it as a mom, as a significant other, as a friend to this person? How would I handle it? How would I feel about them? Would it make me love them less because they did this action, right? This is so helpful to pick apart the action from how I feel about them as a person, right? Sometimes we start to lose respect for people who do certain things, but that's usually people who we're not super close with in life and that we're kind of more watching from a distance, and we don't really know their internal process. I promise you, once you understand the internal process that led to a particular action, you would love them more because you would have that compassion, you would have that empathy of like, oh, now I get it. What drove you to take that action? So it really helps me when I'm being harshly criticized for something to think about, something that somebody did that I really love and respect. And if this person, made this grave mistake that I just made, how would I feel about them? Would I still love them? And the answer is always yes. And that really helps me to come around to really extending that grace to myself. If you have somebody that you're very close with, very closely connected to your partner or a good friend, for me, a lot of times it's my little sister. We've been best friends for a long time. She knows me so well. She knows my intentions. She knows the kind of person I want to be. She knows what I want to share with the world. And so she can give me a good objective opinion, right? She's going to be gentle in the delivery, and she's going to be honest with me. She's going to remind me that, hey, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best action, but I understand why you took it. And she reminds me of like, I know who you are. You are a good person. Your intention is in the right place, right? If you have somebody who can talk it through with you and then can still say, and you can even prompt them, right? If they have never had a conversation like that with you, understand. This is always, this is such an important part about being highly sensitive, is understanding yourself and understanding what you need. So at the end of this journal entry where you're trying to process this criticism, write down, what is it that I need? What do I need right now? Do I just need a hug from my significant other? Do I just need to hear from somebody, it's okay, this is going to blow over? Do I just need to hear, yeah, you messed up, but I still love you? What is it that you need in this moment? And then prompt them. Call your friend and say, okay, we're going to talk about this, and these are the things that I'm going to need you to say. I know this feels weird. Give them the script. Don't you think that they want to help you? And then maybe in turn, they'll come to you when something like that happens to them, of like, this is what I need to hear. I need to hear that I'm still a good person. I need to hear that I'm still lovable. When you hear that, either from yourself, if you don't want to outsource it to anybody, go in the mirror, or even, just sit and tell yourself, Christine, it's okay. You're still lovable, But yes, hearing it from somebody else, from somebody who deeply cares about you, that's a very, very good feeling, right? And then really to wrap this up is, yes, I've already foreshadowed it, right? I think point number 2, what is this inability, or I don't even want to call it an inability, because we're not unable to handle criticism. We've just made a decision that it's too painful and that we don't want to handle criticism, right? Once you can acknowledge that and pick that apart, I know it doesn't feel that way, right? When you're just starting, when you're just learning, when you're just realizing I'm highly sensitive, it feels like things are forced upon you. It feels like your feelings are forced upon you. It feels like everything is too much. It feels like you don't have a choice. But if you can just start with sitting there and saying, I do have a choice over what thoughts are going through my mind. I can deliberately choose my focus. I can choose the meaning. I can choose what I do with my body, right? Focus, physiology, and meaning, the 3 things that make up any emotion. When you can acknowledge and sit there and say, I do have a choice, and I can choose that I no longer believe that I am unable to handle criticism. I'm realizing that it's very painful for me to handle criticism, and therefore I haven't been wanting to, right? But right now, I'm asking myself, what is this decision that I don't want to handle criticism? What is that costing me? How am I making myself small? How am I not showing up as my authentic self? Am I choosing not to do certain things because I'm afraid that I will be not perfect at it, that I will receive criticism, that will receive negative feedback that I'm worried about? And gosh, if you're at all in this space of like social media and putting yourself out there or growing a business, anything like that, one of my favorite speakers and authors was Wayne Dyer. And I listened to one of his audiobooks, and he was like, when you're starting to put yourself out there, expect 50% of negative feedback from strangers, but also from your family. 50% of negative feedback. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God. And this is Wayne Dyer. He's like brilliant, So much comes down to like expecting it from the beginning, because then you won't be surprised by it. And then you can even do some of this work ahead of time, right? What might be the negative feedback that I might receive? How am I going to digest it, right? It's still going to hurt. We're highly sensitive. We feel deeply. And if nothing else, I just remind myself, if I care deeply, and if a criticism throws me into introspection, that means I care. That must mean I'm a good person, right? I want to work on myself. I want to make sure that others perceive me in a way that isn't hurtful to them. Granted, some of that is definitely up to them. I can only do so much, but I can do my part, right? So what is it costing you that you're potentially running away from receiving criticism, from receiving feedback, right? Somebody who is well-intentioned, who wants you to grow and to succeed and to achieve your goals. If they can give you that positive feedback, that might get you on the fast track. That'll get you to your goal. That'll help you to go where you need to go. I would love to hear your feedback. What is something that you're really struggling with? Was there some kind of criticism that you received that just really hit you so hard that you just couldn't even digest it, couldn't even process it? If you don't want to put it in the comments, just send me an email, emotioncoachchristine@gmail.com. I always love to hear or read what's going on the inside. What are you struggling with? What an amazing session today. We talked about receiving criticism, why it is so hard as a highly sensitive to receive criticism and what to do about it, how to handle it, how to feel better, right? These 3 steps of feeling better about it. I don't know if I've picked a topic for tomorrow, but it'll be another one of 30 things that I wish I would have known as a highly sensitive.